Hello, my brood. Like many autistic people, I've spent an inordinate amount of time wondering what is friendship. I think that we can all feel pretty comfortable with what an acquaintance is, but where I think that people struggle, and I know for myself, is when does someone transition from being an acquaintance to being a friend? This seems to be a pretty difficult, recurring area for many autistic people. And so I wanted to take a few minutes today and talk about three things that, while they don't define a friendship, I believe do have to be present for a friendship to exist. As always, I'm not a mental health professional, I'm not a doctor. Everything that I share is just from my own experience. It's not from a place of expertise, but rather something that I've found that helps me. The first thing that I think has to be present for a friendship to form is reciprocity. We see reciprocity in plenty of different ways. Perhaps the most obvious is in communication. Person A talks to person B talks to person A. The two of them reach out to each other. It's a reciprocal communication relationship. But reciprocity shows up in other ways as well. You can show up to spend time together. You can share in gifts, like in birthdays, or do favors for one another, help each other out around the house, pick up something at the store, or more in an autistic sense, maybe reciprocity looks like parallel play, where each person is reciprocating in just doing their own thing but together. The second thing that I think has to be present is vulnerability. I think that vulnerability is a word that carries a lot of different meanings. And what vulnerability looks like in a relationship can vary widely from person to person, relationship to relationship. A simple example that I've experienced is where people feel vulnerable in opening up and sharing a story of a difficult time in their life or perhaps a traumatizing event. And they feel like they can have this vulnerability without me targeting them or attacking them or criticizing them. Other examples would be trusting a person to keep your promises or believing them when you ask them to do something that really is important to you and they say that they'll do it. Letting a person see you during the bad moments, during the upsetting moments, maybe there's anger, maybe there are tears, maybe there's embarrassment or shame, or calling on someone when you need to be cheered up, when things aren't going too well, and you know that they're a person who might be able to help you along. Maybe they don't give you advice, but you know that they'll make the right jokes, they'll make good comments, they'll take you to nice places. Being vulnerable is putting ourselves out there in a way where we can experience more hurt, more harm, more pain, but we trust in the person to not make things worse for us. And then finally, the final trait that I think has to be present is called rupture and repair. If you haven't heard of these before, it's fairly straightforward. Rupture is any time that a relationship is damaged, and repair is any time that you heal that damage in maybe passive ways or maybe proactive ways, maybe reactive ways. A very early form of rupture would be between a parent and child, where the parent says, "No, you can't have that candy," and the child gets upset. But as we see, repair happens. A minute or an hour or a day later, things are happy again. The relationship is healed. But maybe we see rupture happen in a friendship where one person is unfair during a game. Could be a video game, could be playing together on a board game or make believe. Perhaps not seeing each other for a long time or missing out on an opportunity to see each other. You could have a difference in opinions or preferences. You could refuse a request, like driving someone somewhere or picking someone up. And of course, major ruptures happen too, like a fight between partners or between friends. In the autistic sense, we see ruptures often show up in other places that people wouldn't think about. Autistic people who have sensory sensitivities that are frequently triggered by someone or perhaps repeatedly triggered in a way that was preventable. Being misunderstood, although perhaps unintentional, is a rupture that autistic people frequently experience. And one that gets talked about a lot is having our needs minimized. This could be as simple as I need a place to go sit by myself and recover when I'm at your house. And being told that, no, you don't, just get over it. Or perhaps a meltdown worthy rupture could be damaging or disrupting a deeply important object or ritual. Many autistic people have clothing, or perhaps they have stuffed animals, or they have things ordered in a particular way, or they do things in a particular fashion. And those things, by doing them, bring comfort or maybe some normalcy to something that is otherwise chaotic. And by damaging or disrupting those things, it can be an extreme emotional rupture. And all of these things, repair can show up in the form of just moving through the feelings until the feelings pass. It can show up in the form of a verbal apology or perhaps an act of goodness for the other person, like gift giving or bringing food, perhaps. Rupture and repair has a lot of different ways of presenting, but of course, we know that repair doesn't always happen. Ruptures will often happen, and the repair never will. Now, for those of you who are fans of Isaac Asimov's three laws of robotics, you may have noticed that these three traits, reciprocity, vulnerability, and rupture and repair, are in the order they're in for a reason. Reciprocity comes first because it is the foundation of two people interacting. You can have one person give a greeting and the other person do nothing back. And that pretty well ends the relationship before it even begins. Vulnerability comes second because although two people can be reciprocal, like small talk with a person at the checkout lane in the grocery store, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're sharing in vulnerability. But when both sides feel comfortable to be vulnerable with the other, then you can make progress through that relationship. You can't have one side that feels like they are able to be vulnerable and the other side that feels like they have to stand their ground. If you have that, and although many relationships do form with those traits, it will always lead to some friction where you might not be able to move forward into a deeper, meaningful relationship. And rupture and repair comes final. When a person is vulnerable with you, when they feel like they can share a story or a traumatizing event, and you minimize it, or maybe you misunderstand it, or maybe they're expecting a comforting smile or a hug, and maybe you laugh at a fact of it, or maybe you ask questions that you didn't realize were inappropriate, or maybe you didn't even realize it was a difficult, traumatizing thing that they're telling you. When you have vulnerability, you have the potential for the ruptures. And these ruptures and these repairs have to be able to go both ways. If one side is always causing the ruptures, perhaps they're never taking the vulnerable moments seriously, or they're constantly letting down on promises, or they're avoiding you in those upsetting moments that you just need a friend. And the other side is always the one doing the repairing. They're always saying, it's okay, I understand. Or, you know what, no problem, we can get over it. Or maybe they're the ones gift giving to make up for things. You end up with an unequal relationship where one side can get away with increasingly anything, and the other side is always the one trying to make up for it. But then, if a rupture happens on the other side and an unreasonable response or refusal for repair is returned, a friendship probably isn't going to be sustainable. Now, like I said at the beginning, this doesn't define what a friendship is: reciprocity, vulnerability, and rupture and repair. I, for as long as I've been working at trying to figure out what is friendship and when does a person become a friend, I've not been able to figure that one out. I don't really understand it. But what I have figured out is that by looking at these three things, do I have a reciprocal relationship with this person? Do I have a vulnerable relationship with this person? And can my relationship experience ruptures and then repairs from my side and from their side? If I have those three things, I don't necessarily know that I have a friendship with them, but I know that we're at a good place to try.